The 417 Gamers is a group of board, tabletop, and card gamers in the 417 area code. This is the podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast, episode 23, the one with Thematic Games. In the 4, we are joined by our friend Seth from Metagames Unlimited. We discuss 4 games in the 4, Ready, Set, Bet, Fantasy Realms, Dutch Intercity, and Donuts. And the one topic of the show, we talk about thematic games, the what, the why, the how much it means to us. And in the 7, we talk about our 7 favorite thematic games. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast. My name's Rick.
And I'm Andrea.
And we're joined by a guest. Your name is?
Seth.
Hey! Seth is one of our good friends from our friendly local game store, Metagames Unlimited. We coerced him to come onto the podcast, and he's going to join us for all 4 segments of this episode. Then we're going to drag him back for the expansion to talk about himself and maybe talk about his favorite games.
Happy to be coerced.
The 4 in the 417 is 4 games that we've been enjoying recently. Andrea, what have you been enjoying recently?
I have been enjoying recently, and for a while now, Ready, Set, Bet.
Uh-huh.
It is a fantastic, I hate to call it a party game because I don't know that it necessarily fits in the same category as like Monikers or Cards Against Humanity. But it would be fantastic for a party. But it is one of those games where the more players you have, the more interactions you have, and the funner it is.
Right.
There are 2 different ways you can play the game. You can either use the app, which is free, or you can roll dice to see how far the horses move. It is a horse racing game, and you can roll the dice, and whatever numbers come up, those are the horses that move. So you have horse number 7, horse number 9, horse, and if you roll that number, that horse moves. Mm-hmm. And if you roll that number twice in a row, they get bonus action, bonus moves.
Except for the 7, because it's the most prevalent die number to pop up.
7 horse doesn't need it.
No, it does not.
And actually, before playing this game, I had no idea that if you roll 2 dice over and over again, 7 is the most common number that will come up.
That's why when you play Catan, that's the robber.
It's true. Fun thing about Ready, Set, Bet, I actually played several games of it, and then I went to Hot Springs, and I have a horse track there. And after playing a lot of Ready, Set, Bet and learning about horse racing, I went to the horse track there, and I was like, I know this. It's such a good adaptation of horse racing. What
do you have in the 11-12 spot?
Yeah.
So did the number 7 horse win? No, I'm just kidding. He had 8 legs, so he could go faster.
So with Seth on here, we just got done doing a Tuesday game night at Finnegan's Wake that he hosts, and we did Ready, Set, Bet. And I know you said it's not necessarily a party game. There was 9 tables going.
There's 9 tables. I think by my estimate, there was about 40 people there.
Yeah.
Just all playing on the same race. Just a ton of fun.
So the way that it worked was the facility had a large projection screen, and so for the same race, they would project it up on the screen, and each different table we're all watching the same race at the same time, and we're putting down our bets. On our board. Your board is a large betting sheet, basically. Each horse has different spots where you can put your money chips down if you think they're going to win. There are 3 columns. You've got the win, place and show. And the third one is place or show. So whichever one you think is going to win. But you can't put all your chips down at the beginning because you have no idea who's going to come out of the gate strong. And you can't wait too long to put your bets down because once 3 horses have passed a no more bets line, you can't bet anymore. Even though that's a good that's the best time to put your bets down because you've got a good feeling of who's going to win at that point.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. There are VIP cards that you can incorporate to it. You don't have to. They give you special powers. And then there are prop bets that you can, cards that you can also play with that say things like, bet on here if you think the 8 horse will beat all of the other orange horses or things like that. And then there are also, like in roulette where you can bet on black or red, the horses have different colors. You can say a red horse will win or a blue horse will win.
Or a black horse will finish last.
Yeah. Yes. So, because the black horse is number 7.
That's right.
So it's really fun because when you get into it and you've got all your money on that number 6 horse because you think it's going to win, and here comes number 8, you're like, no, come on. It's you. As a matter of fact, the Finnegans where we were, we talked to the cook afterwards, and he was like, what was going on? I could hear you guys all the way back in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and I loved it.
It's very much a game, I think, where just the right group makes the perfect game. It's one of my favorite go-tos. If everybody can kind of get involved with it and everybody can kind of cheer behind their horse, it is just a fantastic evening.
Absolutely.
And that is published by AEG Games, and the designer on that is John DeClaire. John DeClaire is a designer that we really look forward to. Not every one of his games doesn't hit with me, but I'm always looking forward to trying his next game. Seth, you got a game that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, actually, it's a game that you turned me on to, so I'm really excited to talk about it. Fantasy Realms.
Yeah.
Fantasy Realms, one of my favorite kind of classic card games is Gin Rummy. I just can't get enough of it. It's so easy. You carry around a deck of cards. You can play it anywhere. It's one that me and my girlfriend play a ton. And then whenever you showed me Fantasy Realms, it's a very similar game. Every single game card in the game is unique, but they have specific interactions with each other. The goal of the game is to have the most points in your hand by the end. But some cards will negate other ones. Some of them will give bonuses. There's a few cards in there where it's like, if you have this card, if you have a candle and the bell tower and the book of changes, then you get 100 extra points. And it's just absolutely ridiculous, but it's so much fun. I have played that game I don't know how many times in the last few weeks, but I just cannot get enough of it.
So have you also played the spin-off Marvel Remix version?
I haven't played Marvel Remix yet. I really should. I love the fantasy theme on Fantasy Realms, but I'm not opposed to a Marvel theme either, so I think that I'd really enjoy it. It's fun actually. Learning to play Fantasy Realms and kind of realizing that I love those styles of games finally introduced me to knowing the categories of games, which is surprisingly useful. So whenever I see a game and it says, oh, this is a hand management game, I'm like, I'm sold.
Yeah.
That is my game now.
It's also dangerous. Then you're like, I love worker placement. I have 30 worker placement games.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not going to play all 30 of these all the time.
I'm going to open up my closet one day and say, hey, what game do you want to play? I've got 12 different hand management games.
Yeah.
Pick your favorite. And this is going to be one of my tops. Just can't get enough of it. I still haven't even played with all of the variants and expansions yet, so I just know I got more to go.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is published by WizKids and is designed by Bruce Glasgow. I'm going to talk about a train game. A few months back, we had Logan on in our group, and he likes his train games. We played Dutch Intercity. This is published by Rio Grande Games. It is designed by Han Hadaima. So it's basically like a rail system inside the town, and several companies are vying for it. When you first start, everybody gets to put a share of a company up for auction. So we had a 5-player game. Everybody gets to start the game by offering up a share, so everybody has the chance to own a share, and you should. But you also keep on going until one person has run out of money. Otherwise, you keep on going. And you really don't want, in that first round, somebody to own 2 shares, because then they have a leg up for a good chunk of the game, and it's hard to catch them. I didn't know that, but I was told that after it happened. It's very interesting because it's auctions on top of auctions on top of auctions. The board is very unremarkable. The gameplay is interesting, and then whoever first buys the company, the first stock, you run the company and you decide which track they're going to try and build each round, because you can build one track if possible. You take the money whatever money won the stock, that goes to the company, and that's what you build with. So then you try and build. However, once you start building out into the city, you might conflict with another company, and only one person can build there. Nobody can share. So if all the spaces are numbered, so everybody puts down the card or the space that they want to build on, you flip over. If multiple people want to build in the same spot, you have another auction. Because, of course, auctions. Whoever is willing to pay the most money will then get to build in that spot, and the other people just didn't get to build that round. Then you pay out. You get paid out based on how many lines that train is basically the train is going. We played it. I'm glad I got to play it one time. I think one time might be all I need to play of it. It's interesting, and I can see from a 1999 that came out and people are like, oh man.
I've walked past the box dozens of times, and it's always struck me as one of those games. It's like, this has to be a remarkable game, because the box is not a lot to look at. So I just know the contents must be phenomenal. And yeah, it seems like an interesting game.
If you adore your train games, I could see like, oh, this is a classic you have to have.
Yeah.
For me, I really like train games, and I feel like after I played this, I have all the train games I need. Although I am looking forward to the next Iron Rail series from Capstone, which is South African Rails. But that is Dutch Intercity by Rio Grande Games. Seth, you had one more game you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I picked up a very interesting little game. It's a 2-player game. It's called Donuts. After, I believe it was Gamma, we were sent several demo copies to the store, and we decided to pop open a few of them and try them out. And this is one of the ones I got to try. It's a 2-player game where you have a grid with several sort of slashed boxes on there, like triangles, like just squares divided into two. And you are placing donuts on these squares. One person has chocolate, one has vanilla. And you place the donut, and whenever you put it down, the line is pointing up or down, or I guess up and down, or left and right, or kind of diagonal lines. And the opponent has to place their donut in that direction as well. You are trying to get the most donuts on the board at the end of the game. You can flip your opponent's donuts by surrounding theirs with yours. So if they have a line of 3 donuts, you put a donut on one end, you put one on the other end, then you can flip all of theirs into chocolate donuts. So it's kind of a very interesting, more free-form style
like
game.
an Othello, reversey type mechanic.
Yeah, I found it was pretty neat. I've only gotten to try it one time, but I thought it was fun. I'd definitely give it another try. I think that's probably one of the more recent games I've tried out. But yeah, it was fun. It looked nice.
That was the 4 and the 417. Let's go on to the 1 topic of the show. Metagames Unlimited is Springfield's friendly local game store, located at 3309 East Sunshine, just off of 65 Highway. Metagames has a daily and nightly Magic events, role-playing games, tons of board games, knowledgeable staff, and one of the largest play areas in the Southwest Missouri area. Come say hi to Seth! Go to Metagames Unlimited, 3309 East Sunshine. Now, the 1. The 1 topic of the show is thematic games. How much does theme and game meaning to you and all that good stuff? So, first and foremost, Seth, whenever you're looking for a game, how important is theme for you?
Theme is pretty important to me. Whenever I think about a theme in a game, I kind of have 2 different avenues I would call a game thematic. A beautiful game, I would call thematic. If everything in there looks nice, it's cohesive, all the elements kind of make sense. it's clear that they had an idea from the beginning whenever they designed it. Maybe the mechanics aren't necessarily within the theme. Maybe it's still just a worker placement or a set collection or whatever it is. But at the end, if it's beautiful, it looks nice, packaging is nice, I'd call that thematic. And I love a game as well. I guess the other avenue of thematic would be whenever it's almost self-explanatory. Like I can explain the premise of a game, and that's enough for people to know the rules. I love that in a game. It means a lot to me, because the faster I can teach somebody a game, the faster I can start playing it, and the more times we can play it. Mm-hmm. If I have to spend an hour explaining the theme of this game, then oftentimes it's not really going to take off the same as a game who's well thought out from the beginning.
Yeah. We were playing a game with one of our heavy gamer friends, Gary and Elizabeth, and I was having trouble during the teach following, and I said, well, what's the theme? What's the purpose here? What is there a theme? And he's like, well, if you use your imagination. And I was like, okay. But no, I'm totally with you. Theme means a lot to me.
A lot of times at the store, whenever I try and demo somebody a game, if I can, I'll always start off by just explaining what the premise is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right, we are sewer designers in Manhattan. And they're like, fantastic, I'm in. I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
I got to design this sewer. If that's a game, let me know. That sounds pretty...
Yeah.
pretty
Like Ghostbusters.
You took the shoe away from the dog, and now he's found a bone to chew on, so he's happy. No, theme is important to me. It's down the list for my importance, but yes, I absolutely understand what you're talking about, especially for teaching games. Mm-hmm. When the theme integrates and it makes sense what the next action is, I like my dry Euros, but when a Euro marries its theme to where you take this action to do this, you go to town because you need this stuff. You know, you need to go to the woods to gather this material. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
There's a game that I played a while back. It was a Euro, Beer and Bread, which I'm sure you guys have tried out. Yeah. And I feel like that had a really nice theme in it as well. You know, you played in the season. Some crops were more available than others in some seasons. You know, it's like your building is used up whenever you're making either beer or bread, so you got to plan which one you're doing, and it's just nice. I just love the themes, you know.
One of the first heavier games Rick introduced me to was Viticulture, and that game, even though it was the hardest game I had ever played at the time, it was easy for me to follow along, because it's like, okay, in the spring you plant your grapes, and then you harvest the grapes, and then you make wine from the grapes, and then you sell the wine. Okay, that's pretty easy to follow. So that helped me along more than I think just reading the rule book would have done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some themes that you really look for in games? Is there anything that pops for you?
Something that I often enjoy looking for in themes is something that is easy to sell to my girlfriend. You know, I enjoy games a lot, and so does she, but I can't show her the dozens of games that come out every month.
Right.
So I have to kind of cherry pick. And so whenever a game is about running a library, or growing the best house plants, or something with cats, it's like, this is something I can pick up and I can show pretty easy, and she says, oh, I love it. It's about design. It's about it's about taking care of plants. That's usually the easy one I can sell. It just gets the buy-in a lot faster, even if the gameplay is not exactly the same as actual plant care. It's still the theme's there. She's more willing to buy into it.
Andrea, what themes really pop for you?
I love either games that are about animals, like The Fox Experiment or Ark Nova, or sci-fi games like Terraforming Mars, or of course there are the property games like Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff like that. I think that having a vested interest in a franchise like that, or Marvel, for example, like we were talking about for Marvel Remix, I enjoy I think I enjoy that a little bit more than the original Fantasy Realms. Not that I didn't like it, because I love the wizards and the dragons and everything. But, you know, when you're doing the Marvel remix, you're like, oh, Thor needs Thor's hammer. Those two cards have got to go together. You know, and you're like, Mystique, she doesn't fit with my hand. You know, so...
Get out of here. Get with the mutants that you belong with.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
So I think that my attachment to those franchises also really helps pull me into a game. But those are my main themes that I like.
Yeah. I do love a good sci-fi theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really don't look for themes.
Boo.
You don't. You're mechanics first.
I am a mechanics person, but then the theme draws me whether I have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanics, I'm like, ooh, what's that? And then if I see a theme that's like really, really good, I'm like, ooh. Like Heaven and Ale is very dry Euro. You're pushing and getting your resources, and I'm like, but you're making beer and you're monks?
Sold.
Okay, sold.
Well,
And yeah, and it also sometimes themes get me to try a game that I probably wouldn't have. One of my favorite themes, and our friend Carl, we like our wrestling,
mm-hmm.
but by and large, wrestling board games suck.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's one, the WWE Legends Royal Rumble card game. It is stupid simple. It is not hard to teach. It is not hard to play. But it gives you the chaos of a Royal Rumble game. Or of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view from a viewer standpoint. Because you're just attacking each other, and you have so much health points, and when your health points are gone and they hit you again, you're eliminated from the ring. And you get the next character because he's running down to the ring, and you're a new character. So it also feels like you're playing the old wrestling video games where your guy got knocked out, and you're like, all right, I didn't like him anyway. Now I'm Honky Tonk Man. Or Brutus, you know, or the Rock, or Razor Ramon, you know. The themes, and I'm so mechanics driven that I can overlook themes, because for the longest time I kind of had a rivalry with Star Wars against it. But there's so many good games for that IP that we have Imperial Assault, and we need to play Star Wars Rebellion. We picked it up.
You guys were talking about Outer Rim for a while too, weren't you?
We were wanting to pick it up, but we have the two that we still haven't got to play, and I refuse to get another Star Wars game until we play the ones we already got. I want another Star Wars game. You have Star Wars games at home.
I'm a sucker for all the pandemic style games. I know that they came out with the Star Wars version of that, and I've been itching to play that, but I just never got around to it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many Star Wars games.
What's a theme that you think is overdone right now?
You know, as much as I love Lovecraft themed stuff, Eldritch horror kind of things, I feel like there's so many of them, and often the theme never really does the game as much justice as I would hope.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I feel like I'm a sucker to at least pick up the game, and then I look at it and I say, oh, is it actually good though? I don't know.
Sure. Well, Star Wars. There's a Star Wars of everything.
I'm glad you got it. So now I got to pick a different one is what you're saying.
No, listen, I love the franchise, and, you know, I'll be like, ooh, a Star Wars game. Is it any good? You know, it might not be because there's so many.
Yeah. For me, it's high fantasy. There's so many high fantasy games. And whether they're thematic games or they're some of the choose-your-own adventure-style games or dry Euros that are masked in a high fantasy. There's a game on Kickstarter called Yonder that I've been looking at, and it's worker placement, which I love, and then it's high fantasy, which I also like. And just because I think there's too much high fantasy doesn't mean I don't like the theme. I do like the theme. I just recognize there's a lot out there. But Yonder, as a worker placement, each round you're going to draft your workers, and the workers, you don't have your own pool of workers necessarily, so you have to draft them. And the different workers have different abilities. So, like, the skeletons, they can take actions as normal, but you never have to feed them. The elves, they're thin and wispy, so even if a space has been taken, they can squeeze their way in there and they can still take that action. And then I think it's gnomes go in pairs. So you have to put 2 down to go to a spot, but I think you get double the resource from that spot. Then there's ogres, and there's another. And the idea of the actions and the mechanics and how they fit, it sounds cute. And I'm on the verge of kickstarting it, but I also know we have a lot of games.
So many Kickstarters out there, too.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about the Kickstarter is I won't see it for a year.
Yeah.
So it won't be on my shelf of possibilities.
Oh, there you go.
So I don't have to worry about it. I'm like, I don't have it.
You know, I was about to go into a whole thing about city builders. I feel like there's a lot of city builders that keep on coming out, and then even Foundations of Rome is coming out with Foundations of Metropolis,
Yep.
Really?
which is their kind of cheaper, keep it in stock more version. It's just going to be cardboard shits instead of the big giant box.
Yeah.
You don't have
And it looks fine.
Have room for a cube
Yeah.
in your game
Hey,
collection.
make space for a cube. Foundations of Rome is worth it.
It is
Right.
really good.
But if you take a game bag to
Yeah.
game night, Foundations of Rome is the game that's going in there.
Yeah.
And
So-
you might be able to put fancy realms with it,
This is true.
but that's about it.
Yeah. So Foundations of Metropolis might be the better way to keep that. But I've been seeing a lot of video game themed games coming out lately, just taking IPs and turning them into board games.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of mixed results. I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about. I think it was Darkest Dungeon, which makes sense because the video game itself is
And
very
Slay the
board
Spire,
gamey.
I heard
Slay
you
the
say.
Spire, yeah. I know Terraria came out with one recently, which is one of my favorite video games, but the board game itself just looks not very good.
And then I've heard mixed results from Stardew Valley.
Yep.
The people that love it and are willing to explore it have enjoyed it, but the ones that just gave it one play came out of
I have played the Stardew Valley one. I enjoyed it. For a cooperative game, it is extremely challenging. We barely made it on our first playthrough. And it was fun. I wouldn't say it has the same feeling as Stardew Valley, which is supposed to be kind of a chipper, kind of easygoing game. This one's pretty high stress. But I had a good time. I'd play it again for sure.
Nice.
Well, that was thematic gaming from us, and when we go over to the 7, why don't we talk about some of our favorite thematic games?
Let's do it.
We alluded to it, but every Tuesday in Springfield, Missouri, head on down to 305 South Avenue and play board games with Seth, Metagames, and Finnegan's Wake from 6 to 10. Check their Facebook page and see what games Seth might be featuring. And the 4th Tuesday of each month will be Bring Your Own Game. Let's get to the 7.
Do this.
The 7 in the 417Gamer podcast is 7 of a category, and we're talking 7 thematic games. Seth, what is your 7th favorite thematic game?
My go-to whenever or my 7th, should I work my way up?
Yeah, let's go low, go
fantastic. Okay. Let's go ahead and hit it with Galaxy Trucker. Galaxy Trucker is a pretty fun one. Obviously, the theme is that you are a trucker in the galaxy in space. The whole idea is that I can't remember the name of the company. It's Company Incorporated. I don't remember. It's something very silly like that. They have an open contract to all truckers to ship cargo across the galaxy, and to build your own space truck. They dumped a bunch of junk out in space, and you have 1 minute to build your own ship out of all this junk.
Okay.
You can only use one hand. You only have a certain amount of time. And then it's almost like a race. Whoever finishes their truck first gets put in first, and then, so on and so forth. And then throughout the game, you are moving around, going to different planets, picking up cargo, getting hit by asteroids, and it's kind of rearranging the ship formation. There's several scoring criteria at the end for whoever has the most complete ship, whoever carried the most cargo, whoever finished first, several things. It's one I haven't played in maybe a year or so, but it's one that I always think about. It is a very fun game, and the theme only does it justice.
Yeah, we need to try that one. Sounds cool.
We just got rid of it.
Uh-oh.
Darn it. Okay.
Well, I have it.
So-
Well,
I
we
need
can
to
play
borrow it.
yours.
Yeah.
Yes.
Galaxy Trucker is an excellent game. It's just one of the games that was sitting on our shelf for so long I played it one time and having it for 9 years.
That's very fair.
So I wanted to move it along because the people I played with, because it was a night that you were sick or couldn't make it. They're like, "You've only played this once in 9 years?" I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "Then you need to move it on if you're not going to play it again." Because I put it back on the shelf. I'm like, "When am I going to play it again?" And I couldn't identify a time that because it's good, but we have over 300 games. I'm like, when I'm going to pull that out over the rest of that? And
that is the point that I'm kind of at right now. I've only played it twice, one of a friend's copy, one of mine. And it does kind of take up a lot of table space, which is kind of tricky. You have to lay all the pieces out on the table, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
But it's a fun game. Every time I look at it to get rid of the collection because of that, I'm like, oh.
And this is designed by my favorite designer, Vlada Chvátil. I don't like all of his games. In fact, there's some games I hate of his, but he has such a vast catalog of different games. So you have Galaxy Trucker, which is some real-time elements, and then you just sit and watch the story unfold as your ship falls apart. Then you have Through the Ages, A Story of Civilization, which is a card management game that's 3 to 4 hours of you playing a civ builder. And then you have Bunny Bunny Moose Moose, which you're making ears, and it's a little party game that's, if you can get people into it, it's fun, and you have laughs. If you can't, it'll fall on its face. Then you have Mage Knight, which uses the characters from the HeroClix to mark their health, and it's an exploration game with some deck building. Then you have Codenames, which went huge.
Major.
Then you have Tash Kalar, which is a Colosseum battle game where you're trying to make patterns on the Colosseum. The dudes, most designers, when I look at their game, like, oh, that's a Stegmaier design. Oh, that's Stefan Feld. That's Uwe Rosenberg. When it's Vlada Chvátil, I don't know it until I read his name. Dungeon Pets. That's another one of his. He's so everywhere with his designs. He has such talent that he's my favorite designer because he can design just about any type of game, and it impresses the heck out of me. Nice. Sorry for that aside. Andrea, what's our number 7?
Well, I don't know that it's your number 7, but it's for sure mine. Marvel Splendor. No game makes more sense to me thematically than this one. You must get all the Infinity Stones. When you're getting your hands together, the first person to get 3 Avengers gets bonus points because not all the characters in Marvel are actual Avengers.
Because you have to form the Avengers.
Yes, exactly. The most powerful Avengers are worth the most points. Everything, every category, spot on, makes sense. Anyone who knows Marvel can play this game and understand.
All right, what's our number 6?
Ark Nova. You're building a zoo. To build the zoo, you have to have enclosures to put the animals in. Makes sense. The bigger the animal, the more the cost. Makes sense. Certain aquatic animals go into water spaces that can hold other water animals. Makes sense. The petting zoo can hold different species like rabbits, goats. Can't put a tiger in the petting zoo. Makes sense. It's all just it's not a simple game, even though you're building a zoo and animals and everything. It is a complicated game. Yeah. I have a friend who wanted to play it because she saw the box art and she's like, "What's this?" And I said, "You're building a zoo?" And she's like, "Let's play it. I'm in. Sounds great." And we got about halfway through it, and she's like, "I think this one's too hard for me." So she traded off, and Ethan took her place.
Yeah, it's fair point. It's very tough.
It is a hard,
especially for somebody that's coming in willing to learn games, but relatively newbie.
Right.
But
as far as theme goes, they nailed it.
Seth, you have a number 6. What might it be?
I'll probably put for my number 6. Beast. Now, it's been a while since I played Beast, but it came out, I believe it was either earlier this year or last. The idea of the game, if you're familiar with Fury of Dracula, it's a very similar game. It's hidden movement, so one person is playing as a sort of mythical beast of the woods. Mm-hmm. So for the starter adventure, starter setup, it's this giant wolf, right? And you can like summon other wolves. Everybody else is playing as monster hunters, and there's a big map in front of everybody. And all of the monster hunters move openly on the map, but the beast gets their own smaller version of the map where they can move discreetly. And every time that they might kill a city guard, or they attack a town, or they walk into a trap that's set by the monster hunters, it reveals their location, and they get to go and find them. There's a sort of drafting element as well, where there are cards with special abilities, and whenever you draft, or whenever you draw some cards, you might end up giving those cards to your opponent. I remember I had a very good time with it. It didn't sit on our shelf very long before it all sold out. But just in general, the theming was very nice. Obviously, you know, I'm a big wolf. You're trying to hunt me.
Yeah.
Pretty simple as that.
Yeah.
Every now and then you might see where I am.
Nice.
It felt very balanced. I had a great time with it. I'd love to give that one another shot. And there's some very strange creatures that are in that. I'd say the giant wolf is probably the most tame of it all.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, it is.
All right. Let's talk about your number 5.
Oh, my number 5, of course, is going to be Betrayal at House on the Hill. It's one that I think almost all of us have tried. I'd call it a gateway game for sure.
To a point.
To a point. 2 to 5 people are, well, 2 to 6 now with the 3rd edition, are walking into a spooky, I guess 3 to 6, doesn't really matter, are walking into a spooky haunted house, and all of us are walking around exploring the area, revealing the layout, which is different every time you play. And after a certain amount of time, a twist happens. Somebody turns out to be the traitor. I had somebody come into the store the other day, and he said, I played Betrayal at House on the Hill. Do you really have to leave the room whenever you're the traitor? And I said, yes, you should. I guess you don't have to, but it helps.
Yeah. Otherwise, the bad guys win.
Yeah. Like it helps them at least talk about it. I always thought that one was fun, for no reason other than its theme, really. You know, for the most part, it's just move some spaces, roll dice, see if you trip on a broken couch or not.
And if somebody's getting too many weapons, really scrutinize.
Yeah.
Does that person need a gun, a sword, and a knife?
Yeah. Come on, pick a lane.
Yeah. Like, she has a frying pan. That's so sexist. You should give her the gun.
Yes.
And then haunt happens, and she has the gun. She's the evil one. You're like, sorry, you should have had the gun, the knife, and the sword. I don't know what I was thinking.
But Betrayal is an interesting one for me. I don't know how it happened, but I have everything that Betrayal has put out aside from first edition. I've thought about pulling the trigger. It's only like $40 on eBay.
Yeah.
But do I really need it?
They seem to reprint it every year right before Halloween anyway.
Uh-huh.
So I just wait for it to get reprinted.
Yeah. Well, the first edition ones are getting reprinted.
Oh, that's true.
But, yeah. But it's one I definitely enjoyed, especially the Legacy. The Legacy was a lot of fun.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Our number 5 is Shadows over Camelot. This is designed by Bruno Cathala, published by Days of Wonder. This is Knights of the Round Table that is trying to rid evil and triumph. There's so many Monty Python tropes that you have, and you make the jokes. On one board, you're trying to find the Holy Grail. On another one, you're fighting the Saxons. On another one, you're fighting the Picts. You need to have a duel with the Black Knight. And then, basically, you go to these spots and you play the cards. But before the game starts, everybody gets their character. So you have Arthur, you have Lancelot, Percival. Everybody has a power. And then everybody has loyalty rolls. And you're either loyal to the realm or you're a traitor. Because so many people have fantasy and Knights of the Round Table stories that they know, the theme is there, and people make this more thematic than it actually is. Game itself is really, really good. But every group I've ever played with, you get people that start cracking jokes or recalling TV shows or movies, and it makes it more thematic than it originally was, and that's why I have it up there at 5. Nice. Shadows over Camelot.
It's one I've always wanted to try.
Andrea, what's our number 4?
Terraforming Mars, because that's what you're doing. I remember you introduced it to me, and you said there's also a game called Terraforming Mars where that's what you're doing. You have cards, and you got to raise the oxygen and the heat, and like, that makes so much sense to me. Let's do that. So
you gotta put out water to live, and for fish.
Exactly. Every step of the game makes sense to me. You can have, the more trees you have, the more oxygen it makes. Just the terraforming process in and of itself. I think they've done a wonderful job, and it's probably why it's one of the most popular games out there.
Seth, your number 4.
My number 4 is one I tried recently. I've only gotten to play it once, but I had a great time. It's Let's Go to Japan. I got to try this at one of our board game nights, and it's the idea of the game is that you're planning out your dream vacation to Japan. You're pulling destinations from a deck. I believe that there's a drafting element.
Yep.
And you can either go to Tokyo or Kyoto, and oftentimes you're bouncing back and forth between them, but you need to have train tickets in order to do this, or else it's going to cost you extra money.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not trying to lose the bank here.
Right.
And I don't know if it's officially in the rules, but the way that we played it whenever we did was that you had to narrate your whole day. So whenever you were going day to day, it was like, oh, what did you do today? Oh, well, I woke up in this shrine motel, and then I took a walk to this nice park, and I went and see this monument, and I got on a train to Kyoto, and then I ate at this nice restaurant, took some cooking lessons. And it was just really fun. I just love a game that forces you to kind of engage that creative aspect. Yeah. I guess it doesn't force you, but it encourages you.
Sure.
I could have just said, all right, I did this, and I get this many points. Suck it, nerd. But
right.
but no, it was very fun, very rewarding, I think, at the end of the game for each of us to go through and kind of explain the idea behind our choices.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
Yeah.
Your number 3?
My number 3, we're gonna go with Parks. Parks is a beautiful game. If you're familiar with the 59 Parks series, it's a series of prints for the national parks. They're all very stylized. They each show one of the beautiful national parks of these here United States of America. And this game took that art series and turned it into a board game. Essentially, I feel like they took that first and said, how can we turn this into a game that people are going to buy?
Yeah.
And they absolutely did that. The idea is that you are playing as 2 hikers, which was very confusing for me to wrap my head around for a little while. You're 2 hikers going through a trip to each of the national parks over the course of 1 year. In each season, you have a trail. You can only move your hikers down the trail. You can never go backwards. So you have to kind of plan. I'll send this one 3 spaces down. I'll send this one only 1, so I can drag it out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of going through. You pick up tokens, and you can use the tokens to. You can't see me air quoting here, but visit the national parks. You're essentially just buying them.
Yeah.
But, it's like, I need 3 sunshine tokens and 1 rain, and I can visit the Grand Canyon. You can also buy canteens and stuff like that. I believe they can help you carry extra water, or they get you extra water. It's just very fun. It's a game that's just beautiful to open up. It's whenever I think of a thematic game, that's one of the first things that comes to mind.
Our number 3 is Specter Ops. This is published by Plaid Hat Games, designed by Emerson Matsuuchi. This is a hidden role game where one player takes... they're infiltrating the Raxon Corp. And if you've played any of the Plaid Hat games, Raxon is kind of behind the Dead of Winter zombies, or the corporations behind that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's Raxon. Because if you ever do the if you got both Dead of Winter games, there's some Raxon things in the background.
They actually have a game called Raxon, don't
Yeah,
they?
they do.
Absolutely do.
So
Never realized
Raxon's
that.
kind of in behind some different stuff. They might not necessarily be behind the zombies, but Raxon's in the background, and it's something that popped up at a couple of the Plaid Hat games. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's they're like every corp.
That's very cool.
You know, that's Space Corp. But so anyway, one player takes a sheet of paper that has the whole gridded board, and they take one of the characters, and that character has movement value, has a specialty power, and they need to go from the top of the board eventually to the bottom of the board and hit 3 of 4 objective spaces. So in theory, you're either like stealing plans or you're planting bombs, however, whatever the story is for you. The other side are the people that are working for the Raxon Corp, and they have genetically modified characters that also have their own powers. And they are traversing the board trying to locate you, then fight you, and trying to eliminate your health before you destroy their corporation. Because supposedly, you know, you're the bad guy, or they're the bad guy. You know, but the tension in there is so fierce at times. Because it just drives you to these choke points. And as the character, do you make the really smart play to get out of there, or do you let them see you for a brief period so you can pull them in to try and okie doke around them to get where you need to go? There's so much, you know, did I poison the poison or did you poison the poison? You know, they're both poisoned. But fantastic game, very thematic, a lot of tension. Whenever you're the one player, you're stressed as hell. And the other people, when they're organized, it's nice. But once you get towards the end game and everybody's kind of at each other, like, oh, you missed him right here. Oh, go over there. And then you come to the end and one side will win. But that's Specter Ops. I really enjoy that. Andrea, what's our number 2?
I love the Fox Experiment.
You do.
I really do. I love that it's based on a real thing that happened. There were a fur farm. I'm not condoning fur. Back in the day when it was popular, there was foxes in a fur farm, and they noticed the genetic trend of the more friendly foxes had friendly babies and the more aggressive ones had aggressive babies. So they started an experiment where they were breeding friendlies to friendlies and aggressives to aggressives. And this is a board game based on that experiment where you have traits that you're trying to breed for. Like they noticed that ones with floppy ears were more friendly, or dogs with curly tails were more friendly, or ones with spots. So those are traits that you're trying to breed for, and the more of those traits you get in your pups, the more points you get. So I really thematically enjoy this game.
Seth, your number 2.
My number 2 is going to be Canvas. Canvas is just another beautiful game. The idea is that all the players are painters. You are trying to make the most successful painting. And to do so, you are drafting along a sort of conveyor belt of different transparent cards that you can overlay on top of each other. Each player has 3 backgrounds that are going to be their portraits. And whenever you get... You can only hold up to 5 transparent cards. So whenever you reach that point, or sooner, you take 3 of these transparent cards, overlay them into a sleeve with your background, and you make a painting. And a house rule for me in my house is, much like Let's Go to Japan, you have to talk about your painting. You have to talk about the emotions and feelings and what the painting represents. And that always brings up a lot of, laughter, a lot of smiles. It's always a fun time.
That's a nice spin.
Yeah. I think it definitely helps kind of bring the theme out even more. Just the board itself, I remember I was so impressed whenever I got it. It actually hangs up on your wall. Whenever you pull off the plastic, it doesn't have the name on the box at all, except for on the top. So it's encouraging you to hang it up on your wall and pretend like it's a piece of art, and then you pull it down and you play it. So it doesn't even take up shelf space.
Nice.
The original game has a nice canvas playmat too. So it's just very well thought out. Everything in there was nice. The expansion, unfortunately, went into a cardboard playmat, which I like less, but it has more space to do more stuff, so I use it. But yeah, Canvas securely in my number 2.
All right, now we're down to number 1s. Andrea, our number 1 is
Viticulture.
Viticulture is published by Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier. It is the strategic game of winemaking, and as we alluded to back in the topic of the show, this is one of the games I'm talking about. You inherit a vineyard that has nothing on it, basically, except for you get a mama and a papa, and they have bequeathed you with a smattering of people that will work for you, and maybe a structure to start your little vineyard. But each turn, you're going to put out a little worker on the board to go do a thing, to build structures so you can get trellises and irrigation so you can plant some grapes, or take the action to plant those grapes, or take the action to harvest the field to take those grapes off, or take the action to crush those grapes to make the wine, or to take the action to sell that wine to make points. It's a game. There's a lot of Euros that you have to take 5 to 7 steps to get points. And a lot of times it feels like you're just pushing cubes to push cubes to push cubes until you get points. You're like, did I points very good? You pointsed okay. But with Viticulture, you know why you're doing the things. I need to go to the vine dealer to get me grapevines. I need to go give a tour so I can make some money. So let's get these people to look at my vineyard. It's not very impressive yet, but I need $3. And I absolutely love that about Viticulture. It's a bit of a teach, but once you get everybody into, like, what you eventually want to do is sell wine to make money and to get points. But to do that, you have to do all this other stuff in the early part of the year. And because farming is seasonal, you have these workers, once you've used them in one of the seasons, they're tired and they don't want to work for you anymore. So you can only use them in one season and then they're done. And then you have to wait until the next year to get them back. Which thematically, you could argue one way or the other, but it's like, it's seasonal labor.
If I worked that hard, I'd probably want to rest for a whole season too.
I mean, we have a whole bunch of seasonal labor that comes across the border into our country, to our farms to go pick the vegetables and the fruits. And I'm pretty sure that's what Viticulture's doing too. Like, hey, you can only take these people to help you build the structures in the summertime. Why? Don't ask. But Viticulture's our number 1. Seth, your number 1 thematic game.
My number 1 thematic game is going to be a game I've been playing a whole lot lately, Nekojima. Nekojima just came out only about a week ago, but I have been playing it nonstop, and it is securely in my number 1 for a thematic game for no other reason than whenever I demo it at the store and I tell somebody what it is, I can just say, the idea is that you're putting up power lines, and sometimes there's a cat that climbs onto them. And they get it. They're like, okay, great. The lines can't touch the ground. They can't touch other wires. They can't touch poles. People know that power lines are dangerous and have to be put up correctly. So with just me saying that conveys the rules extremely well. I actually was playing it with somebody at one point who was an electrician, and he was saying like, oh yeah, that line can't touch another pole or else it'd like complete the circuit, or I don't know. He was saying something that I wasn't entirely sure on the rules for, and he's like, well, that's how a real power line would be. So is that true in this? And I was like, you know what? Flip. You're exactly right. It's if you know the theme, you know how to play this game.
Nice.
It's very simple. The game itself is just the idea is that there's an actual island in Japan called Nekojima. It's just an island that's completely overrun by cats because that's just such a Japanese thing. As you know, we have an island of cats, we have an island of whatever, and on this island, you are all playing as electricians, trying to bring power to all the different sections of the island. So on your turn, you roll dice that tell you where you need to build. You put up these they've got kind of dowel rods with a string in between. Various colors of string represent the different lengths of it. And It's I keep on telling people also it's almost like a reverse Jenga meets Twister meets a barrel of monkeys.
Yeah.
As you're just putting up these lines, trying not to knock them down, and every now and then, so you're pulling cubes out of a bag. If you pull out a blue cube, it means you have to put up a blue wire, which is the longest wire. There are black cubes, which means you have to hang up a cat. In cooperative mode, you have to do it. In competitive, you can give it. I can say, "Here, Rick. Here, have this black cube. You get to put up a cat on your turn."
I don't wanna.
You have to now. So that one's just been fun. Very, very simple dexterity game. It's we were talking about the Finnegan's Wake game night at the top of the episode. We're going to be playing that one next week too, because it's just so simple. It's such a fun
Dexterity
game.
games go over so well.
It's hard to beat a dexterity game. It really is.
Well, honorable mentions. Andrea, did you have an honorable mention?
There are several games that I like distilled. We were talking about the alcohol, beer and bread earlier.
Yeah.
Distilled is one of the first games that we played, and I told Rick, we need to get that game.
Yeah.
And then we went and bought it. It makes sense. You're getting ingredients to make alcohol, and you need bottles to put your alcohol in. And when you put all of your ingredients together in a barrel, which you need, during the fermenting process in real life, when you're making beer or anything, you have to take off whatever comes to the top during fermentation and the bottom sludge, I guess they call it.
The sediment, yeah.
Sediment. And the same is you shuffle your cards together, and without looking at what it is, you take off the top card and the bottom card, and you are then left with whatever you've made. And you flip over the cards, and depending on what ingredients you have card-wise in your hand is what you have made. And it could be you didn't have very good ingredients, so you made moonshine. Or you had all the right stuff, so you made a high-dollar whiskey, or, a specialty alcohol. And
Some baijiu or some rum.
yeah, and then the more...
Or just a vodka.
And the more fancy bottles that you have put it in, the more points they're worth. So all of it makes sense.
You like games that make sense.
I do.
It really helps a lot.
Guess why?
Why?
Because they make sense.
My honorable mention is Twilight Imperium 4th edition. 3rd or 4th edition. This is a long 4X space galaxy game. You take your race, and if you're playing with like-minded friends, you kind of play up your race a little bit. If you play with the Nalu, you're snooty fish people. If you play with the Cha, the turtle people, you just want to be left alone. Leave me alone. I'm going to build up my... why do you need a giant Death Star war sun? Don't worry about it. We're turtles. We need it. It takes 4 to 6 to 8 hours. It's a long, drawn-out process that you're all, building up your civilizations to vie for control of Mechatol Rex and the galaxy as a whole. By the time you're done, you felt like you did either conquer or got conquered. You felt like that something actually happened in the galaxies. But yeah, Twilight Imperium 4 is my honorable mention. Seth, do you have an honorable mention before we get out of here?
I could do an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Air, Land, and Sea. Air, Land, and Sea is a great one. 2-player game. Specifically, I really enjoy the Critters at War. The original Air, Land, and Sea is World War II themed. It's an older game, and I'm sure at the time it was fantastic and groundbreaking, but looking at those old pictures nowadays just doesn't really inspire me.
Yeah.
But they updated it with all new graphics now, so it's, cows and chickens and pigs all blasting each other with tanks, and it's a lot of fun. The idea of the game is that you and your opponent are both at war with each other, and there are the 3 theaters of war: air, land, and sea.
Yeah.
And you are vying for control for 2 out of 3 of them. Both of you have 6 cards in your hand. You take turn playing cards. You can play them in whatever order you want, and often they are altering the state of the board, making you flip some cards over, move them around, or blocking players from playing in one of the theaters. It's a very cool, dynamic game, and one of my favorite things about it that make it very thematic is that you can surrender. At any point in the game, if you just have a bunk hand and you know that your opponent is probably going to get one over on you this turn, you can just surrender. You can just say, hey, I give up, you get this one.
If you did it early enough.
Yeah, so the way the points work in the game is if you win outright, you get 6 points, 12 points, and you win. So 2 outright victories, and you've got it. But if I surrender early, I can give my opponent 4 points instead of 6, which buys me another round to try and get one over on them. And I think that kind of thematic nature is very nice. Not quite enough to get it on the top list, but it's a great game.
Nice.
Well, Seth, thank you for stopping by the 417 Gamer podcast.
It's been an honor.
Do you have any social medias you'd like to share?
I'd love to shout out the Metagames social media. That's pretty much the only stuff I do these days.
You're on the Instagrams, the Twitters, and the Facebooks.
Not much of the Twitters these days, but we do some Instagram. We do a lot of Facebook. If you're ever looking for anything about Metagames, you probably want to check the Facebook.
I heard someone refer to you as the Facebook guy the other day.
It happens a lot.
Because you make the memes.
I make the
and
Thursday
you use
memes.
yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I get a lot of people who say, hey, do they ask you before they make those posts? I make them.
I have not asked myself, you know?
Yeah. No, Carl's not asking before I make these memes.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been a
And
blast.
we will see you. We're going to bring you back on the 20th.
Okay.
And we're going to talk to you about your favorite games.
Can't wait.
All right. See you then. Goodbye. The 417 Gamer podcast is recorded and produced by Rick Bagwell and Andrea Smith. We want to thank Seth from Metagames coming on and being a guest. Our music we use, Kind, Gentle, Beautiful Person, and Making Up for Lost Time was created by Origami Replica. For links to our music, the show notes, and more, go to our Facebook page at Hobby Gaming Network. Till we hear from you next time, keep gaming in the 417.